I won a fortune in the lottery, $2 million, and decided to keep it to myself. First, I tested my family, asking for help to see who was truly loyal. Everyone declined, convinced I was just an old fool scraping by on my pension. Only one person stepped forward, unaware of my windfall. I'd least expected assistance from them, but now, they would inherit everything. Before we go further, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. The lottery ticket trembled lightly in my weathered hands as I carefully marked my familiar numbers 7, 14, 23, 31, 42. Every number held a memory. Margaret's birthday. Tatum's. Finnegan's. Rodriguez. Our wedding anniversary. The bonus number, 18, for Ellis, my late brother's son. $20. Same as I had been playing for 3 years. Dad, what's wrong with you? Tatum's voice cut through the crisp autumn air before her car door had even clicked shut. I folded the ticket carefully and slipped it into my shirt pocket as her heels echoed angrily across the wet driveway. The screen door burst open without warning. I saw you at Miller's corner store, she said, standing in the kitchen doorway, mascara smudged, salon uniform wrinkled. $20, Dad? 20 whole dollars, and I'm canceling appointments because I can't afford gas. Good afternoon to you too, sweetheart, I said, sitting calmly at the table, hands folded. Before I could react, she snatched the lottery ticket from my pocket. These ridiculous numbers. You really think you're going to hit it big? That some fairy godmother is going to make us rich? Give that back, Tatum. No, she said, waving it above her head like evidence in court. Do you know I owe $1,850 for Kayla and Mason's school supplies? $1,850? And here you are squandering $20 on fantasy? I rose slowly, knees protesting. I've given you $3,200 this year. Finnegan got $4,800. Rodri, $2,100. Do you want me to tally every grocery bill, every electricity payment, every emergency car repair? Her face burned red. That's different. That's family helping family. This is my money helping my hope. Your hope? I whispered. Every dollar I saved working double shifts at the factory while you kids were growing up. Every dollar I skipped on myself so you could have decent clothes and school lunches. This is my hope. She clenched the ticket tighter. I'm not asking for much. You're asking for everything, I said, voice sharper than I intended. You want my lottery winnings? Finnegan wants my investments. Rodri wants my emergency fund. When do I get to want anything for myself? Tatum's eyes narrowed. What you want is foolish. What I want is mine. She stared at me as the kitchen clock ticked between us. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows. Finally, she tossed the ticket onto the table. Fine. Waste your money. But don't come crying when you're eating cat food because you spent your last $20 chasing dreams. The front door slammed, rattling the coffee cups. Through the window, I watched her Toyota spin gravel as she reversed down the driveway. Her red tail lights disappeared, leaving only the sound of rain and my own steady breathing. I picked up the ticket, smoothing the creases her fingers had left. The numbers stared back at me. My family's birthdays, dates that once meant cake and laughter, now felt like accusations. Hours later, as autumn darkness fell over Milford, I sat alone with a cup of cold coffee. The lottery ticket lay beside yesterday's newspaper. Then my phone rang. The soup had just begun to simmer when the call came. I'd been stirring chicken noodle, steam rising from the pot, trying not to hear Tatum's words echoing through the empty house. The caller ID read Finnegan. Hey, Dad, he said, careful and controlled, the tone he used when he thought I needed guiding. Tatum called. She's pretty upset. I set down the spoon. I can imagine. She said you bought another ticket today. $20? That's right. There was a pause. Clicking keys in the background, he was still at his downtown office, working late to prove his value. Dad, we've been over this. $20 doesn't seem like much, but it adds up. That's $240 a year. Over 5 years, $1,200. Math has always been your strength, son, I said softly. I'm serious, he said sharply. You're on a fixed income. Every expense should be weighed carefully. I gripped the phone tighter. Like the $7,300 in credit card debt you couldn't pay last year? The debt I covered so your credit wouldn't tank? Silence. That was different. An investment that didn't pan out. This, I said, pointing to the ticket, is my investment in hope. Hope doesn't pay bills, Dad. Neither did your crypto, your friend's restaurant, or that MLM scam you swore would make you rich. Those were calculated risks, I said, turning off the stove. This is a gamble. The only difference is I admit mine. Finnegan sighed, dramatic as ever. Look, I'm not trying to run your life. I just want to help you make smart choices with money. Mom always said, don't. The word cut sharper than I intended. Don't use Mom as an excuse to treat me like a child. That's not what I'm doing, is it? You call me up, lecture me about $20, while I send you $400 every month for your so-called emergencies. When was the last time you asked how I'm doing? When did you last come over just to see me? Another pause. The keyboard clicking went quiet. I care about you, Dad. We all do. That's why we get worried when we see you making poor choices. Poor choices. I stared at the lottery ticket stuck to the fridge by a sunflower-shaped magnet, Margaret's favorite. $20 for a chance to imagine a different life. $20 for 30 seconds of what if. Finnegan, I need to ask you something. Sure. If I actually won the lottery, really won, what would you do? He chuckled. Dad, the odds are like 20 million to 1. That's not what I asked? A longer pause. When he spoke again, his tone was careful. I'd be happy for you, of course. And I'd hope you'd be smart. Get advice. Make sure it's invested properly. Invested properly? By whom? Well, I know a thing or two about financial planning. I hung up. The dial tone buzzed briefly before I rested the phone back in its cradle. The soup had stopped simmering. The kitchen felt colder somehow, like all warmth had leaked out through the phone line. I walked to the fridge and looked at the ticket again, 7, 14, 23, 31, 42. Bonus 18. My family, reduced to numbers on paper. Numbers that could mean nothing, or everything. 8 days passed until the drawing. 8 days of screening calls from my children, of eating quiet dinners alone, of realizing exactly when I'd become nothing more than a walking bank account to them. Thursday evening, I sat in my recliner, the remote balanced on my knee, flipping channels aimlessly. The house felt enormous at night, shadows stretching over corners where Margaret's furniture had once sat. Most of it had been sold, too many memories for one old man to carry alone. Channel 7 flickered on just as the lottery music began. Jennifer Martinez, the anchor who'd called the numbers for 15 years, smiled at the camera with her practiced warmth. Good evening, Ohio. Tonight's jackpot stands at $1 million. Let's see if we have a winner. I reached for my coffee cup. Empty. The lottery ticket lay on the side table, behind a photo of Margaret holding baby Tatum. I'd moved it from the fridge after Finnegan's call, keeping it closer somehow. First number tonight is 7. My hand froze halfway to the cup. Second number, 14. I grabbed the ticket with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy. 7. 14. Margaret's birthday. Tatum's birthday. Third number, 23. Finnegan's birthday. I brought the ticket closer to the lamp, comparing the printed numbers to Jennifer's call. This couldn't be real. Fourth number, 31. Rodri's birthday. My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. Fifth number, 42. Our wedding anniversary, October 42nd, 1982, 42 years compressed into a single number that now thrummed with electricity in my hands. And tonight's bonus number 18. Ellis. My nephew. The boy I barely knew but loved anyway. My brother who died too young. I'd added 18 on impulse 3 years ago, believing family should stick together, even on lottery tickets. Jennifer Martinez went on about double-checking numbers, claiming procedures, 180 days to come forward, but her voice sounded muffled, distant, like it was underwater. I rose too quickly, nearly dropping the ticket. $1 million. I walked to the kitchen, legs unsteady, and spread the ticket under the bright overhead light. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42. Bonus 18. The numbers stared back, innocent as rain. I had chosen them for family, birthdays and anniversaries, dates that marked our lives together. Margaret would have laughed at the irony. The family who had spent 2 days telling me I was foolish for buying lottery tickets had just made me a millionaire. $700,000 after taxes, the TV said. More money than I'd earned in the past 10 years combined. More than my father had ever seen working the Kentucky coal mines. But standing there with $1 million slip of paper, I wasn't thinking about money. I thought about Tatum snatching this ticket from my pocket, mocking my hope. I thought about Finnegan lecturing me on poor choices. About how quickly they calculated what I owed them, but never what they owed me. The ticket felt heavy now, full of possibility and quiet revenge. I went to the bedroom and opened the small safe where I kept Margaret's jewelry and important papers. The ticket slipped inside, next to her wedding ring and the house deed. Before closing the door, I stared at it one last time. Tomorrow, I would call my children. Invite them to dinner at the Rusty Anchor, our old family restaurant. Tomorrow, I would see who they really were when they thought there was nothing left to gain. The safe clicked shut, like a decision made. Morning sunlight slanted through my bedroom window. 3 turns right, 2 left, 1 right, the combination to Margaret's jewelry safe. The lottery ticket lay exactly where I'd left it 12 hours ago, alongside her engagement ring and our marriage certificate. $1 million condensed into a slip smaller than a business card. I spread documents across the kitchen table like a general planning a campaign. Driver's license. Social security card. Lottery claim form printed at 6 a.m. Everything I needed to make this real. To turn numbers on paper into cash in the bank. The drive to the post office took 15 minutes through Milford's quiet streets. Maple leaves carpeted the sidewalks in gold and crimson, the morning air sharp and biting, making everything feel possible. I parked between a rusted pickup and a soccer mom's SUV, manila envelope tucked under my arm. Certified mail. The postal clerk, a woman about my age with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes, weighed my envelope on the digital scale. 850 grams, with return receipt? That's fine. I handed her $10 and watched her stick the green label onto the envelope, tracking my lottery ticket's journey to Columbus. How long for delivery? 2 business days, typically. Important documents. That would be accurate. Back at home, I sat at the kitchen table with the phone in front of me like it was a loaded weapon I intended to fire. 3 numbers jotted on a scrap of paper. 3 children who needed to see exactly what kind of people they had become. Tatum answered on the second ring, her voice sharp, laced with irritation she couldn't fully mask. Dad, I'm with a client. What's going on? Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. I just wanted to invite you to dinner Saturday evening. The whole family. A pause. Noise from the salon drifted through, hairdryers, chatter, and the pop music meant to keep clients entertained. Dinner at your house? The Rusty Anchor. My treat. Her tone shifted immediately. Transactional warmth replaced the initial annoyance. If you're paying, then okay. Can I bring the kids? Of course. I'll make a reservation for 7. 7? Who else is coming? Your brother's Finnegan's wife. A family dinner. She laughed, though it carried no real humor. When was the last time we all sat down together? Mom's funeral. The words landed harder than she likely intended. Margaret's funeral had been 2 years ago. That indeed might have been the last time all my children had shared a table. Saturday 6. Don't be late. I hung up before she could ask more questions and immediately dialed Finnegan's office. Whitaker and Associates. A secretary's professional voice answered. Finnegan Whitaker, please. This is his father. A brief hold. Then Finnegan's measured tone. Dad, everything all right? You never call here. I'm inviting you to dinner Saturday. Rusty Anchor. 6 o'clock. Family dinner. Silence stretched between us. I could almost hear him weighing motives, hunting for hidden meanings. What's the occasion, Dad? This isn't like you. Can't a father invite his children to dinner? Of course. But… Another pause. Is this about the lottery ticket? Are you trying to make some point about family unity? The question betrayed more about his mindset than he realized. Everything for him was a debate, a score to settle. I want to have dinner with my children. Will you come or not? We'll be there. But Dad, if this is some kind of intervention about your spending habits. 6 o'clock, Finnegan. Don't lecture me about my habits until you've cleared your own debts. I hung up, a little harder than necessary, and dialed Roderick's number. 5 rings before his groggy voice answered. Yeah? It's your father. I'm inviting you to dinner Saturday night. Dinner? He yawned, probably just stirring after working late at the bar. 6 o'clock. Rusty Anchor. Sure, I can eat. That place has good steaks. Who's paying? There it was. Every child's first thought when I offered anything. Not how are you? Not why. Just who's footing the bill? I am, obviously. Cool. 6 o'clock Saturday. Got it. The line went dead without a goodbye. I leaned back in the kitchen chair, staring at the notepad. 3 calls, 3 acceptances, 3 different ways of asking who would pay. Not one had asked why, or how I was, or what made this gathering special. Saturday would reveal everything about the people I had raised. Saturday evening arrived, autumn's early darkness blanketing the Rusty Anchor parking lot. I'd come early, securing our usual round table in the back corner, where Margaret had insisted we sit for birthdays and anniversaries. Linda, our waitress for 15 years, brought coffee without prompting. Family dinner tonight, Mr. Whitaker. Haven't seen everyone together in a while. Something like that, I said, settling with my back to the wall, watching for every arrival, every interaction, every subtle cue revealing who my children had become. Tatum came in at 6:15, her 2 kids trailing like reluctant satellites. Kayla, 12, never looked up from her earbuds. Mason, 9, immediately asked about Wi-Fi. Neither acknowledged me until Tatum nudged them. Say hello to Grandpa. Hi. They mumbled, already scanning for seats far from adults. Finnegan and Sarah arrived promptly at 6:20. Sarah gave a warm smile and squeezed my shoulder, the only one who seemed truly glad to be there. Finnegan studied the table like a chessboard, calculating his next move. Roderick wandered in at 6:35, damp hair from a quick shower, wearing the same leather jacket he'd had since college. He slumped into a chair and immediately flagged Linda for a beer. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. There had been no traffic, but no one questioned it. Linda took our drink orders. My family settled into familiar rhythms. Tatum opened her menu to the cheapest options. Finnegan examined the wine list as if reading a financial prospectus. Roderick ordered the most expensive steak without a glance at the prices. So, Dad, Tatum began, before we'd even ordered appetizers, launching into school expenses discussion. Let's order first, I interrupted. She pressed forward anyway. Mason needed new soccer cleats, and Kayla's science project required materials I simply couldn't afford right now with the salons slow and winter approaching. Mom, can we get dessert? Kayla piped up, eyes glued to her phone. If Grandpa's paying. Tatum replied automatically. Finnegan cleared his throat, the kind of authoritative sound meant to command attention. Actually, Dad, Sarah and I have been talking about your finances. Those lottery tickets are just throwing money away. I could double your savings in the stock market within 6 months. Here we go, Roderick muttered, taking a long swig of beer. Investment advice from the guy who lost $7,000 on crypto. That was a calculated risk based on research, Finnegan shot back. Unlike gambling on lottery numbers. Trust me, I know about gambling, Roderick said casually. 3 years of poker taught me all about probability. The house always wins, Dad. Always. Sarah tried to smooth things over. Maybe we could just enjoy dinner without dissecting Dad's choices? Tatum's voice carried the edge of someone nursing grievances for weeks. While he's buying lottery tickets, I'm deciding between groceries and gas money. Mason glanced up from his tablet. Can we go home now? This is boring. I sipped my coffee and watched them dismantle my life decisions with the precision of vultures stripping a carcass. Every objection was financial. Every solution involved redirecting my money. Every critique assumed I was too old, too naive, too incapable to manage my own affairs. When the main courses arrived, the focus shifted to complaints about jobs, debts, and constant demands for support, all somehow circling back to my wallet. Roderick mentioned rent issues. Finnegan hinted at business opportunities requiring capital. Tatum tallied her children's Christmas costs aloud. Not once did anyone inquire about my health, my loneliness, my memories of their mother. Not once did they thank me for the thousands I'd provided over the past year. They spoke of me as if I were absent, critiquing my competence and resources with complete disregard for my presence. When Linda brought the check, I handed over my credit card, hands steadier than they had felt in months. My children watched with the intensity of auditors scrutinizing balance sheets. Thanks for dinner, Dad, Tatum said, already collecting her purse and kids. Think about what I said about school expenses and my investment idea, Finnegan added. I'll send you some research. Roderick just nodded and headed for the door, likely late for his shift. I was left alone at the table, surrounded by empty plates and the lingering trace of Sarah's perfume, the only one who had hugged me goodbye. The restaurant pulsed with the Saturday evening rhythm of other families, grandparents doting on grandchildren who actually noticed them. Linda approached with the coffee pot. Refill, Mr. Whitaker? No thanks, I said. I think I've learned all I need tonight. Sunday morning brought clarity with the autumn sun spilling through the kitchen windows. I sat at the table with a fresh cup of coffee, a blank notebook, and the firm knowledge that my children had failed their first test without ever knowing it existed. Thursday's phone calls had hinted at it. Last night's dinner had confirmed it. My children saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM, only showing frustration when I didn't comply quickly enough. I opened the notebook and wrote 3 names across the top: Tatum, Finnegan, Roderick. Beneath each, I began designing tests to give them one final chance to prove they deserved even $1 of my lottery winnings. Tatum's test targeted her self-centeredness and the assumption that my resources existed solely for her convenience. A health scare would suffice, urgent enough to demand attention, yet manageable enough that a loving daughter would drop everything to assist. I wrote. Monday, 10 a.m., heart palpitations. Need ride to doctor. Will she leave salon during peak hours? The genius lay in its plausibility. At 68, heart issues were real. I'd experienced occasional irregular beats since Margaret's passing, stress-related, my doctor said. But Tatum wouldn't know that. A truly caring daughter would prioritize me. A selfish one would suggest calling an ambulance or asking someone else. Finnegan's test required a different tactic. His controlling intellect and financial arrogance made him susceptible to scenarios involving money advice. Tuesday, 2 p.m. found savings bonds, $12,000. Asked for investment guidance. Will he genuinely advise or seize control? This exploited his belief that he always knew better. Would he offer thoughtful guidance, or immediately try to manage my money as if I were incapable? Roderick's test focused on his irresponsibility and casual attitude toward other people's problems. Wednesday, 7 p.m. lost wallet with pension at grocery store. Need help searching, filing police report. Will he assist or make excuses? Timing was critical. Wednesday nights were prime bar shifts for him. A son who cared would sacrifice earnings to help retrieve funds essential for survival. A selfish one would dodge the inconvenience, Each test was urgent yet manageable, serious but not catastrophic. Each targeted the flaw most evident at dinner last night. They would have the chance to prove me wrong, to show the love and respect I had hoped for 68 years. I noted clearly what constituted passing or failing each test. Passing required immediate concern for my well-being, willingness to set aside personal convenience, and genuine empathy for my situation, rather than calculating how much it might cost them. Failing meant putting their own needs first, suggesting ways to avoid inconvenience, or treating my problem as a burden they couldn't be bothered to shoulder. The coffee cooled beside me as I refined the final details. Each scenario needed to feel urgent, desperate enough to demand attention, yet believable enough that they wouldn't suspect manipulation. My age and circumstances made every situation plausible: medical emergencies, forgotten financial assets, and lost valuables were common for someone in my stage of life. If all three failed, I would contact Ellis in 2 weeks. My nephew had called twice since Margaret's funeral, not asking for anything, just checking on me. He lived 4 hours away, had a life of his own, yet he had shown more concern for my well-being than my own children had in years. The lottery ticket rested in my safe, $700,000 after taxes, enough to transform someone's life, to provide security, opportunity, and freedom from financial stress. It deserved to go to someone who valued more than its monetary worth, someone who understood the years of hard work and care that had accumulated it. I closed the notebook and glanced at the kitchen clock. 9:30 a.m. Tatum would be in the midst of her busiest day, juggling appointments, hair color, and weekend gossip. In 30 minutes I would call her, reporting chest pains and shortness of breath, and see if I had truly raised a daughter, or merely funded the upbringing of a stranger who shared my DNA. The phone felt heavier than usual as I lifted it and dialed her salon. The final examination of my family's character was about to begin. Monday morning arrived, heavy with resolve. I sat at the kitchen table, notebook open to the first test, hand hovering over the phone like a surgeon poised for a delicate operation. The lottery numbers, memorized, seemed to taunt me from their hiding place in the safe, money waiting for someone worthy. At precisely 10:30, I dialed Tatum's salon. Glamour touch, this is Tatum. Her voice carried the brisk efficiency of someone managing multiple clients at once. Tatum, it's Dad. My voice cracked slightly, adding a faint wheeze. I need help. Chest pains, shortness of breath. Background noise flooded the line. Hair dryers buzzing, a client asking about processing times, pop music to keep the atmosphere light. Everything that mattered more to her than her father's health. Dad? Her tone shifted to mild concern, but I could hear her moving, probably checking a timer on someone's highlights. What kind of chest pains? Sharp ones. Right here. I pressed my free hand to my chest, letting the gesture inform my voice. Dr. Peterson wants me in Columbus immediately, a heart specialist. Columbus? That's almost an hour away. Can't you see someone local? Her words revealed everything. Priorities were clear. But I continued. Peterson says it's urgent. Could be serious. I can't drive like this. Need $30 for a cab. A pause. The hum of dryers shifted as she moved around the salon. Dad, I'm in the middle of Mrs. Henderson's color. She's getting highlights for her daughter's wedding. If I mess up the timing. Tatum, I might be having a heart attack. Can't Finnegan come or an ambulance? Each suggestion hit like a blow. Your father is having a medical emergency, and your first instinct is to delegate it. I gripped the phone tighter, maintaining the panting tone. Finnegan's at work. Ambulance costs $300. I just need $30 for a cab. Dad, I really can't leave now. Mrs. Henderson is our biggest tipper. She specifically requested me. Maybe you could. She interrupted, talking to someone else? Yes, Mrs. Henderson. Another 10 minutes on the timer. Returning to me, her voice had changed. Actually, could you send me $80? There's a dress at Macy's for the salon anniversary party. All the other stylists are wearing designer, and I can't show up looking cheap. Silence stretched as her words sank in. My father calls with chest pains needing $30 for transport, and she counters with $80 for a dress. The test could not have been more conclusive. Dad? Are you there? The dress is on sale, but only until tonight. I'm here. My voice had flattened. The feigned breathlessness replaced by genuine emptiness. So, can you transfer the money? I've got Mrs. Henderson under the dryer, but I could swing by the mall after work. I glanced at my notebook, pen hovering over the space marked Test 1, Tatum. The outcome was unmistakable. When confronted with her father's possible heart attack, she had chosen hair appointments and dress shopping instead. $30 to potentially save my life? She countered with $80 for vanity. Dad, the connection's breaking up. I'll figure something out, I murmured. Perfect. The dress money. I hung up. The kitchen seemed colder, as if Tatum's selfishness had seeped through the phone and poisoned the air. I picked up my pen and wrote deliberately. Test 1 failed. Prioritized client appointments and personal shopping over father's potential heart attack. Outside, autumn leaves drifted past the window, like fragments of every illusion I had once held about my family. 1 test down, 2 to go. Yet I already suspected the results. Tuesday afternoon brought test 2, and the systematic collapse of the remaining illusions about the people I had raised. I spread old bank statements and investment papers across my desk, constructing the perfect backdrop for confusion over modern finance. At 4:20, I called Finnegan's office. Tech Flow Solutions, Finnegan speaking. His voice carried the crisp confidence of someone used to authority. Son, I'm a bit lost with all these investment options. I let uncertainty seep into my words, playing the befuddled elder flawlessly. Could use your guidance. Of course, Dad. What's going on? Keyboard clicks rang softly in the background, the subtle symphony of someone managing multiple priorities. I have some savings in a basic account, earning next to nothing. Interest rates are terrible. And all these ads about crypto and stocks. My voice trailed, the perfect portrait of an overwhelmed senior. The clicking stopped. How much money are we talking about, Dad? Not risk tolerance. Not financial goals. Just the figure, the first question of every self-interested advisor. Well, I've been careful over the years. Saved a little here and there. I remained vague, letting his interest swell with the promise of opportunity. Dad, I need specifics. Thousands? 10,000? More? Possibly more. I could almost hear the mental wheels spinning. That's why I need your advice. These investment sites are confusing. Listen, Dad. His voice shifted, took on the lecturing tone he reserved for explaining technology to those he deemed inferior. Basic savings accounts are financial suicide. Inflation erodes your purchasing power every day. I know, son. That's why I called you. Here's what we'll do. Give me control of the account, and I'll move everything into a diversified crypto portfolio. Could triple your money in 6 months. There it was. Not guidance, not education, but an immediate grab for control, the same instinct that had led him to lecture me about lottery tickets, now focused on assets he'd only just discovered. I let confusion slip into my voice. I thought you were just going to advise me. Dad, you don't understand modern investing. It requires constant monitoring, split-second decisions. You can't manage complex instruments at your age. As if turning 68 had instantly erased decades of financial competence. I can set up automatic transfers, he pressed, gaining momentum. Power of attorney for investment decisions. You'll still access spending money, but the real assets will be properly managed. By someone who understands markets. You spend $20 a month on those ridiculous lottery tickets. That alone proves you need professional guidance. Trust me, Dad, 5 years from now, your portfolio will have grown exponentially. I gripped the phone tighter, maintaining my confused elder act while anger simmered behind it. I need to think about this, I said slowly. Don't think too long. Market opportunities don't wait. Even his final words were pressure, the classic sales tactic of artificial urgency. "I'll call you back." I hung up before he could apply more. I wrote in my notebook, "Test 2 failed." Attempted to seize control of father's assets under guise of financial expertise. Immediate manipulation. No genuine education offered. 2 tests down, 2 failures recorded, 1 remaining. Wednesday evening promised the final confirmation of what I already suspected. None of my children deserved a penny of my lottery winnings. The living room was quiet. The television murmured local news as I prepared for the last test. My notebook lay open. 2 failed tests already inked in careful handwriting. At 9:45, I dialed Murphy's pub. The line rang 3 times before Rodri's voice emerged, carrying the bar's background, glasses clinking, sports commentary from the TV, the steady hum of regulars. "Murphy's. Rodri speaking. Son, I'm in trouble." I let real concern color my voice. "Lost my wallet in Riverside Park today." "Lost your wallet?" I heard him move, probably wiping down the bar while juggling the phone. "Yeah. Don't have credit cards, just this week's pension money. $150. Bank won't replace the check until Monday." A pause. Someone called for 2 beers and a whiskey in the background. "Hold on, Dad." I listened to him serve drinks, rituals of cash and glasses exchanged. When he returned, his tone shifted. "Sorry about that. Wednesdays are busy." Another pause. "Dad, I'd help, but I lost big at poker last night. $300. 300. He had gambled away twice what I needed and admitted it without shame or apology. The irony was staggering. My son, addicted to gambling, refusing to help his father because of gambling losses. 300, I repeated, letting disbelief color my voice. "Roderick, you promised you'd quit poker." "I mostly have. Just one bad night. Cards happen. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And last night you lost my week's grocery money. Come on, Dad. Don't guilt-trip me." His defensiveness was immediate, the tone of someone trained to deflect responsibility. "Could you sell some of those old tools in the garage?" My tools, the wrenches, saws, hammers, and screwdrivers I'd collected over 30 years to fix everything in our house. He wanted me to liquidate decades of labor to replace money he had gambled away. "Rodri, I need help, not suggestions on how to help myself." I know. I'm tapped out right now." Someone called his name across the bar. "Listen, maybe you finally got lucky on those lottery tickets." The comment landed like a punch. I sat there, holding $1 million lottery ticket, while my gambling-addicted son mocked my lottery habit instead of helping me recover pension money. The cosmic irony was almost too perfect to bear. "The tickets are a waste," he continued, echoing the constant criticism of his siblings. "But hey, maybe tonight's your lucky night." If only he knew. If only any of them knew that I had already achieved what they considered impossible. Their ignorance was telling. Even confronted with my emergency, Rodri's first instinct was to shirk responsibility and suggest alternatives that didn't inconvenience him. "So, you can help?" I asked quietly. "Dad, if I had it, you know I would. But 300 down is 300 down. I'm barely covering rent this month." Barely covering rent because he had gambled away his income. The pattern was clear: irresponsibility leading to crisis, then deflecting responsibility onto the father he considered foolish for buying lottery tickets. "I understand," I said, though understanding was not the same as accepting. "Maybe hit up Finnegan. He's got that at money." Pass the responsibility. Never accept the consequences of your choices. Never sacrifice for family when it's inconvenient. "I'll figure something out," I said. "Sorry, Dad." "Really? If my luck changes tonight, I'll call you." He hung up to serve another customer, returning to an evening likely spent earning money only to lose it again at the poker table. I closed my notebook slowly. The final test complete. 3 children, 3 chances to show love over self-interest. 3 spectacular failures. Each test required minimal sacrifice, $30, honest advice, a borrowed $150. None had passed. But I knew someone who would. Ellis's number sat at the bottom of my contacts, added 2 years ago after Margaret's funeral. Tomorrow I would call him and see what real family loyalty looked like. Thursday evening settled over my empty house like a shroud. I sat in my recliner, notebook closed on my lap, staring at the fireplace where Margaret and I had once shared autumn nights. The silence was heavy, weighted by the knowledge that I had raised 3 strangers who merely shared my blood. At 7:30 the phone rang, cutting through the melancholy like a lifeline. "Uncle Harlan." Ellis's voice carried warmth I hadn't heard from family in weeks. Those 2 words made something tighten in my chest. "Ellis, good to hear from you. Mom said there's some family stress. Tatum and the others being demanding. You doing okay?" I pressed the phone closer. Genuine concern in his voice. When had any of my children asked if I was okay without first calculating what they needed? "I'm managing. You know how it is with family." "I do, actually. That's why I'm calling." Papers rustled in the background, probably grading assignments. "Uncle Harlan, you've always been too generous. Sometimes people take advantage of that." "Take advantage." The phrase hit precisely where it needed to. 3 failed tests had proven that's exactly what my children had been doing for years. "You might be right, Ellis. Look, I know I'm far away here in Toledo, but if you need anything, money, help around the house, even just company, I'm here. Could drive up this weekend." I stared at the closed notebook, then at the phone in my hand. Ellis was offering help without being asked, without calculating what he might gain, without hesitation. Everything my own children had failed to do. "That's very generous of you, son." "It's not generosity, it's family. Real family." His voice carried a certainty that reminded me of his father, my brother Tom. "Uncle Harlan, I've always looked up to you. After Dad passed, you were the one who made sure I had what I needed for college. Remember that?" I did remember. $2,000 for Ellis's textbooks and dorm fees, given without hesitation when Tom's insurance fell short. Ellis had sent thank you letters for months afterward, updating me on his grades, his teaching goals, his gratitude. "You paid that back, Ellis, every bit of it. You taught me that debts matter. Responsibility matters. But more than that, you showed me what love looks like." He paused. I heard him shifting around his apartment. "I'm sorry my cousins don't see that." Not his siblings, not his immediate family. He understood the difference between blood relatives and chosen family far better than the children I had raised. "Ellis, you've always been special. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. I learned from good examples. You and Dad, mostly you after he passed." Another pause. "Uncle Harlan, I'm serious about helping. Whatever you need, whenever you need it." "No questions asked?" "No questions asked?" Completely unlike every interaction I'd had with my children in recent memory. They always ask questions. How much, when, what will I get in return? Why can't you handle it yourself? "I appreciate that more than you know. Family takes care of family. That's what you taught me." After we hung up, I sat in my recliner for a long time, holding the phone, thinking about the conversation. Ellis had called not for his own gain but because he'd heard I might need something. He had offered help freely, asked about my well-being without calculation, and expressed gratitude for past kindness rather than claiming entitlement to future support. I opened my notebook and turned to a blank page. At the top I wrote, "Ellis Whitaker, True Family." Below it, I started planning how to ensure real loyalty would be rewarded. The lottery ticket in my safe was no longer just mine. It belonged to someone who understood the meaning of family. A week later, I drove toward Columbus, documents in hand that could change everything. The October morning carried the crisp promise of autumn's peak, golden sunlight streaming through my windshield as I navigated downtown traffic toward the Ohio Lottery Commission building. I parked in the government lot and walked through security, manila envelope tucked under one arm like a businessman carrying contracts. The guard directed me to the third floor, where a receptionist with kind eyes and a professional smile confirmed my appointment. Mr. Whitaker, congratulations. Ms. Rodriguez will assist you. Maria Rodriguez looked about Finnegan's age, wearing a navy suit and the confident demeanor of someone accustomed to processing life-changing moments daily. The office walls were lined with framed photos of lottery winners, ordinary people holding oversized checks, their expressions a mix of disbelief and joy. Please have a seat. Let's verify your winning ticket. I handed her the slip of paper that had caused so much family tension. She scanned it under a special light, checked the numbers against her system, and nodded. Confirmed, $1 million jackpot. October 10th drawing. You have the winning ticket. She looked at me with warmth. How does it feel to be a millionaire, Mr. Whitaker? Like justice, I said, then corrected myself. I mean, surprising. Very surprising. She smiled and began explaining the process. Federal taxes would take 37%, state taxes 4%, leaving roughly $700,000. I could choose annual payments over 20 years or a lump sum. The choice was simple. Lump sum, please. I have specific plans for this money. Excellent. Let me prepare the paperwork. For the next 45 minutes, I signed forms, provided identification, answered questions about tax withholding and bank deposits. Ms. Rodriguez outlined media policies, lottery procedures, and financial advisor recommendations. Everything felt surreal, bureaucracy transforming abstract numbers into tangible wealth. Your check for $700,000, Mr. Whitaker. She handed me a sheet of paper that weighed nothing but represented everything. Congratulations again. Any immediate plans for your winnings? Taking care of family, I said. The family that deserves it. I drove to Riverside Park afterward, settling on a quiet bench overlooking the Scioto River. The check felt weighty in my hands, despite its physical lightness. $700,000, more than I had earned in the last 15 years combined. But the number wasn't what mattered. What mattered wasn't the money itself, it was the justice it represented. Ellis would get $500,000 outright, enough to secure his future, pay off any debts tied to teaching, maybe pursue grad school, or travel during summers. Money that would go to someone who had shown genuine care without expecting anything in return. The remaining $200,000 would cover my own living expenses for the years left to me. I would never have to ask my children for a single thing again. More importantly, they would never have the chance to treat my needs as burdens to be avoided or leveraged for their own gain. Autumn leaves drifted past my bench, carried by the gentle river breeze, scented with change and possibility. Tomorrow, I would call my children one last time, inviting them to dinner for a conversation that would alter our family forever. They would learn that actions have consequences, that love has value, and that the father they dismissed as foolish had been wiser than they ever imagined. I folded the check carefully and slipped it into my wallet beside Ellis's phone number. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning their choices had earned. Saturday evening returned me to the rusty anchor for the final act of this family drama. I sat in my car in the parking lot, reviewing the lottery documents one last time. The winning ticket, the official claim verification, the folded check that would change everything. Linda seated us at the same table as before. The cosmic irony was not lost on me. Tatum arrived with her children, Finnegan with Sarah, Roderick punctual for once. They slipped into their familiar rhythms, Tatum scanning the budget-conscious options, Finnegan analyzing the wine list, Roderick ordering the premium steak without a second thought. So, what's the occasion this time, Dad? Finnegan asked after our orders arrived. 2 family dinners in 2 weeks, uncharacteristic of me. Just wanted to see everyone, I said, cutting my chicken with deliberate care. The conversation flowed predictably. Tatum brought up the kids' upcoming expenses. Finnegan hinted at investment opportunities. Roderick grumbled about slow tip nights. None of them asked about my health, my loneliness, or how I'd been spending my days since our last dinner. When Linda brought dessert, apple pie for the grandchildren, coffee for the adults, I knew the moment had come. I have something to tell you all. I set down my coffee cup with steady hands. I won the lottery 2 weeks ago. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Even the grandchildren looked up from their phones. Won what lottery? Tatum's voice carried the skeptical edge of someone accustomed to disappointment. I reached into my jacket and placed the winning ticket on the table. $1 million. October 10th drawing. Here's the ticket. Finnegan grabbed it first, studying the numbers as if calculating a complex equation. These are the numbers you always play. Family birthdays. Mom's. Yours. Your siblings. Even Ellis's. $1 million. Roderick's voice cracked. Dad, are you serious? I spread the lottery commission verification and the check across the table like evidence in a trial. $700,000 after taxes. Right here. The transformation was instantaneous. Tatum's eyes filled. Not with joy, but with frantic calculation. Finnegan leaned forward, ready to take control. Roderick stared at the check, absorption and disbelief etched into his face. Dad, this is incredible. Tatum reached across the table. We need to be smart. Kids' college funds, my mortgage. Actually, Finnegan interrupted. The priority should be proper investment strategy. Dad, you'll need professional financial management. Hold on, I said quietly, and the sharpness in my tone made them both pause. Before anyone starts planning how to spend my money, let me tell you about the past 2 weeks. I looked at each of them in turn. I tested you, all 3 of you. Confusion flickered across their faces. Tatum, Monday the 14th. I called with chest pains, needed $30 for a taxi to see a heart specialist. You were too busy with highlights to help, but you asked me for $80 for a dress. Her face drained of color. Finnegan, Tuesday the 15th. I asked for advice about some savings. Instead of helping, you immediately tried to take control of my money. That wasn't guidance, it was manipulation. Roderick, Wednesday the 16th. I lost my wallet with my pension money. You couldn't help because you'd already lost $300 gambling. Roderick's mouth opened and closed in stunned silence. Each of you failed a simple test. When your father needed help, you prioritized yourselves. When I asked for small amounts, you either refused or tried to turn it to your advantage. Meanwhile, Ellis. I watched their faces shift at the mention of their cousin. Ellis called Thursday evening. No agenda, no requests, just checking on my well-being because he knew the family situation. He offered help freely. Money, time, company, whatever I needed. That's what family looks like. Tatum's voice sharpened with desperation. He's not even your son. No, I said firmly. But he understands what family means. Real family. I stood slowly, my decision taking shape. Ellis will receive $500,000. He's earned it through genuine care and respect. The explosion was immediate. Tatum's tears flowed, raw and angry this time, a mixture of rage and desperation. Finnegan leaned in, muttering about legal challenges and unfairness. Roderick sat frozen, comprehension settling across his face like a slow-moving storm. Dad, you can't be serious. Tatum sobbed. We were your children. Children who treated me like a walking ATM. Children who criticized my lottery tickets while secretly plotting how to spend my winnings. I opened my wallet and placed exact change on the table for my share of the dinner. Ellis never asked for anything. That's why he deserves everything. Sarah, who had been silent through the entire revelation, reached out and touched my arm gently. Mr. Whitaker, she said softly, I understand you're hurt, but maybe. Sarah, you're a good woman. I'm sorry you married someone who views his father as a financial resource rather than a person. I walked toward the restaurant exit without glancing back. Behind me, their voices rose, a mix of protests, accusations, and frantic bargaining. The autumn air felt crisp, freeing, a sharp contrast to the stifling weight of family disappointment. In my car, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Ellis's number. Time to call my true heir and deliver news that would transform his life forever. Justice, it turned out, felt exactly like walking away from people who had never truly deserved your love. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.